But I think, all through like growing up, right? I think everything has pretty much led to me, running a business, right? I think that's always, I think right from like whenever I can remember, that's always been something that, I always wanted to do was run a business, right? My dad, is also an entrepreneur. And, I guess that was part of the inspiration. And, we used to spend a lot of time in his office. And so I guess that, that entire, like, seeing that entire setup was part of the early inspiration, right? To want to run a business. But I remember even like, when I was in primary school, right? I always used to sell stuff, right? So when I was in primary school, my mom used to make like pastry for us. And then I would like basically go sell it, sell it in school and then like, use it to buy sweet and sugar, essentially then, yeah. But then, fast forward kind of, when I school and then, went to university in Nigeria, at Covenant University. It was very interesting, right? Because when I filled my form to university, I actually filled business as my course of study. And then my dad saw it as like, what? What is this?
But he was into business. He was into business. So why was
yeah,
he
he was into business, right? But I guess he was into construction, right? He was like civil engineer. And she's like, no, you can't, right? Like you have to study the word was like a professional course, which typically then meant either it's medicine or engineering or accounting or law, just like very prestigious sounding programs. And so I kind of got ultimately convinced to study electrical engineering in school, right? And so I went and I did it, right? But I think for me, from like second year, it was like, okay, I know I'm definitely not going to practice engineering, right? And I kind of found my way back again on campus, back to entrepreneurship. And so, I did quite a number of business ventures. While in school, I published a magazine for high school students, ran a food delivery service on campus, sold random things like catfish. Probably like the most ambitious. The most ambitious was actually kind of like launching like a mini ISP on campus, like internet service provider, right? Because then on campus, like internet wasn't great. And so we like essentially got like a VSAT on campus and tried to, resell internet to students, even though that got shut down very quickly. But I think, yeah, for me, from 200 level, I was really clear that, I really wanted to be an entrepreneur. And to going into 400, 500 level, right, in like my final year in school, I'd interned, I'd done like an undergrad intern at a small like internet service provider in Ibadan, during my fourth year. And kind of identified like an interesting opportunity, right, in terms of like in reselling internet. And so that was actually what led to like me trying to build like an ISP on campus. But also figured out that actually, there were a number of private universities at the time that had the same problem, right, of like bad, like poor internet, right? And this was like 2005. And so I actually, my plan, out of university was to actually go start a business immediately, going around all the different private universities and, helping to build internet infrastructure for them, and then like build the students like, out of their fees. And we'd actually done a business plan, myself and another student at the time. But yeah, and then McKinsey happened.
Before we talk about McKinsey, I guess for me, what I'm wondering, and I guess this is also a little bit like myself, right? When I think about when I was, university, etc., right? it's like you were doing all of these things, right? You were, building an ISP on campus. You were publishing a magazine, the first teenage magazine. Like you're doing all of these bunch of stuff, right? The question I always wonder, and I know why. I know my answer to this, but why were you doing all of these things? I mean, you're in uni. You could have said, "Hey, I'm studying electrical engineering. I'm going to spend all my time, attend lectures, do all of these things." Why did you feel like you had to do all of these disciplines, from magazines to ISPs to XYZ? Why do you think you're doing that?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of two things, right? I think first there is the innate restlessness, right? That I've always had, right, in terms of like, spots what I think is an opportunity and just want to do it or solve a problem. So I think that's one. Second was actually, I think, also a bit of credit, some credit to like a university as well, to Covenant, right? It was also a school that was very big on entrepreneurship.